Welcome to the UK 4-Hour Work Week podcast, where you will find all you need to break free and live the life you want.
Okay, so I'm going to cover key 7 steps that basically assist me to this day, help me continue to create change in my world and in my business world as well. Most of us sit there and look at our goals around this sort of time, around Q1, first year, first month, brand new year. And they sit down and they think, what is my strategy for this year? What do I actually want to achieve? Now, I'm not sure about yourself, but does anybody here get slightly overwhelmed with possible strategies they could do? I can see a nice nod there. Put your hand up. Come on, please, support me. Thank you. These individuals are usually people who are really ready to take action. But what happens is they get great friends or people who have not really had the experience, or what we call pub talk, confusing that matter. Does that make sense? So we have a confusion only by self-sabotage. You know, we check it again. You would just double check and say, I tell you what, it's getting a bit confusing. I tell you what I'll do. I won't start until next month. Or I've just started my New Year's resolution, and what I'll do is I'll hold myself back just a little bit and say, it's kind of a cool idea, but we'll get there someday. Well, very, very simply, I'm going to skip the next screen, only because we've kind of already covered it. The reality is that every single strategy used to create action, discipline, and clarity is the right action. It is the right one. As Henry Ford said, the person who believes he can and a person who believes he cannot are both right. They're both right, are they not? So if I sincerely believe that whichever strategy I pursue and I persist in is going to get me the results, it's kind of logical that I'm going to get that result, isn't it? So I'm going to tell you from my heart, from myself, because there's loads of people out there telling you structures and strategies. Trust me, I'm known as a strategy man. I'm also known as the business model man. So I can very much talk in what we call the left brain language. But I'd like to bring something different today. I just want to talk to you from my heart, because I really enjoy speaking to startup and community. People who are looking to start a new business, because it's quite lonely out there. People will turn around and tell you this is the best way you want to do it. All they're trying to do is really get you to sign up to their event, their course, for their work, for their mentoring. I've got a real exclusive offer, which I haven't even told Deepak at the end. I'm actually going to do something for nothing at the end, if you fancy talking to me, if I've done some work with you. So I'm going to skip through this because I'm aware we've got a timeline and they're going to kick me off in a bit. I'll cover the basic parts. And I'm going to tell you straight, that is exactly how I always introduce myself. I am, without a doubt, a son, a husband, and proud father of 4. I have 4 beautiful children. My eldest is 17. And as you can see, this is not a technical conversation, so I'm going to just share. My eldest is 17, and my youngest is 6. So we've got a lovely, beautiful spread. Yes, I have won awards. I'm now a judge on the panel for the same awards ceremony, for the same award environment. I've been involved in business modeling. Yes, I have done. I cracked my very first £1 million turnover at the age of 21. Now, that only happened, when I'm going to be honest with yourself, when I actually realized something had to change up here for me to actually get that run. I've come from 7 generations of business. So as an industry member, I didn't even know that everybody didn't know how to get into business. I just assumed everybody knew. As I woke up and I grew in that environment, from whether it's property, whether it's talking about what a load-bearing wall is and how to construct an RSJ, and for all of you technical people out there for myself, I knew that when I was 9 years old. Because I was born into that, and I was blessed to be born into that. So it doesn't come from what we call an arrogant space. It comes from a very humble space. I'm speaking in a very firm manner, only to get the point across. Yes, financially free, and I can debate what financially free means. I was financially free by 27. That's not bad, is it? I think I tried pretty hard, pretty focused. That's what you get with me. I'm here in heart, but when you want things done, I can get you there. I'll push. I'll give you as much answers as you want. I'll open the board for any questions, so please jot down anything that joggles in your mind. Just please write it down and do not feel shy to ask, because I will answer it. The industries that I've worked within, and you'd think at the age of 39 now, because my online update hasn't happened quite yet, because I'm now 39 years old. Yes, I know I look 50, but you just be kind to me. In retail, I was one of the original pioneering members within the audio industry, car audio industry, through the 90s. And it was a time when online payments were just in their infancy. So people really couldn't understand. Now it's all web. But through the 90s, there was no platform for people to just log in their details and make payments like it's so easy today. There was no Visa online. There was no MasterCard online. There was none of those facilitations. They were only in-store. So what I did is I was on a board and I was on a panel that warranted and helped banks to understand, because we did so much interaction with people away from our organization, from car audio, like a mail order organization. Somebody put an order in, we'd have to press the details in the card machine, and then we'd dispatch and pack. Yeah? So we had quite a formidable environment working. So I was very blessed to be in the early boom of mail order. And yes, we articulated with the banks. We sat down and helped with them. Online e-tailing went through the noughties, and importing, manufacturing, retirement homes, property, private coaching, mentoring, which is my new private client basis. So in my life, I've realized what makes me, and maybe it's a question we should all ask ourselves, what actually makes me happy? You know, what actually buzzes me? What actually drives me? What actually fuels my getting up in the morning? And if it's only money, trust me, when you have money, it becomes the biggest demotivator of all. Does that make sense? Has anybody been in that sort of mindset themselves? When you have money, you have enough, what do you do with it? You get bored of spending it, right? And it gets to the silly stage where you start doing silly things with it. You start devaluing it in your own mind. And then, if you don't have it again, reignite it, don't we? So I have something that keeps me alive and keeps me kicking, and that's basically my private businesses, where I turn around and I assist people in a private way, mentoring one-to-one. I have a private circle. I have masterminding, so I help people selectively only if they're looking to actually start a business. That means in the masterminds. Whereas my mentoring can help in every aspect, okay? So that keeps me alive, and for the last 3 years, I've been very active in the startup community to try and assist people. Okay, so I'm going to move quickly because most people say, if you have money, Sukhi, if you've been successful, so why are you standing on the stage trying to help people? Because there's a lot of people standing on stage who need the money. The reality is, that's not my energy, not my purpose. My mission and purpose is very simple, I've written up there, is to inspire and create change in the worlds of others. That, to me, makes me wake up in the morning. I get up and I think, there's something I've got to do today. And I'll explain to you why. It didn't just grow out of nowhere. It was because I nearly died. I had hepatitis A. And most people think you can survive hepatitis A. It's quite a natural thing. I was even jabbed. I was everything you could think of. All the things that you could think of. Medically, I should have been absolutely fine. But I wasn't, because what I did is after 6 months worth of fighting with it internally, I ended up collapsing. Coming back from America, and I ended up collapsing 48 hours after landing in the country. But what had happened is that my internal, and I'm actually a non-drinker, so I don't drink for, at that time, 12 years. But my liver was in cirrhosis. It was as though I'd been an alcoholic. My wife was asked, when I went into hospital, she said, told me after the post, because I was completely blank to the world, she said, they asked me 10 times, how much does your husband drink? We really need to know how much alcohol this man consumes. And she said, he doesn't drink. And they said, we understand it could be a religious reason, but please tell us how much he drinks. She said, he doesn't drink. He hasn't drank for 12 years. Then they had other blood tests. So they were waiting for some kind of a read-up on that. And I'm not going to bore you with this, but the reality was, they realized I didn't drink. And how this happened, they were like completely puzzled and perplexed. Ended up, they'd worked at the fact that I had hepatitis A, and then they treated me. Within that 2-hour gap, I could have not been here. So I'm very humbled in every which way to be standing in front of people to inspire them. And I mean from a real, honest place of seeing death and saying, do you know what, I could have not been here. My eldest daughter was 10 years old then. You know, my wife was 29 years old. Well, there's not an age to get widowed, is it? It's not an age not to have your parents around with you. And for me, that was very important. So I woke up. So I spent 13 months away from my companies. I had an inner spiritual awakening, because I'm not the type of person who sits there and tries thinking, well, why me? Why me? I nearly died. Oh, I've lost so much money. Why me? I used to think, well, actually, okay, very simply, and I owe this to my father. And I said, well, why was it me? What was I supposed to do differently? Or was I just supposed to live life in the same numb way, which I thought was great? Or was I supposed to change something? I'm not sure if anybody here has had that kind of experience where they've had a bit of a life change. Yeah? I can see here. And what it is, we end up becoming much more full of life. We try to become much more present in the moment. That's why when I come to the front of the stage, I'm actually not here just to share with you. I'm here to try and enjoy the feedback. I'm trying to think, who in this room is actually going to do something different tomorrow? Who's actually going to change the way they think? Who's actually going to do something different and actually make something of their dreams, should I say? I came back. I had to liquidate 2 companies. At the time, I had 14. So my 12 companies were fine because they were in the prospect of being in the property arena. So they weren't really affected. They had the team. We had a process. Everything was all organized. But then I realized that I needed to get myself out of my business because it was my mistake that I lost the money, not anybody else's. I'm going to speed up now. Yes, I did lose some money. So you are talking to somebody who has lost money. And my next quote will make sense then. My voluntary positions currently today, because today is about giving back as well for me. Hence why I'm standing here on the stage. I'm a founder, steering committee member of the Association of Transformational Leaders, which is connected right up to the people such as, has anybody seen The Secret here? Yeah. The movie The Secret? Yeah, can I have a show of hands just to see you understand? Yeah, did you get anything from that movie? Yeah. Okay, well this is the same organization. ATL is owned by the mothership, which is called TLC, the Transformational Leaders Council, and it's the same people. So we hold the European version of that, and I'm honored to be a coveted speaker of that organization and a trustee. I've also worked with the United Nations and charities, so I think I've done pretty well since the last 7 years. I've pushed myself completely different. Within my world, I'm 100% or nothing. So if I'm in business, I'm growing business, which I still do, but I also had a decision that my private business, is my private life, I needed to learn what really made me tick. So I pushed really hard. And you can see that. You can talk to me whenever you want. I've been involved in the Seek Awards. I've been a coveted judge, and I've been really honored. So that's all just to tell you that I'm okay. I'm not the type of guy who's just sitting there waffling off the top of my head. I hope that doesn't show egotistical, because it's not my style. My 2 mentors in my life clearly are my parents. And I'll share very, very honestly. My father, spiritually gifted and amazingly financial. He is in the pillar stones. I'm not from London. I'm from Peterborough, which is just north of Cambridge. He's in the pillar stone of the Peterborough environment since early 1960s. Now, what I know is just one of our really gracious honors that he was involved in the makeup of the communities that we know today in the Peterborough area. He was totally not held back by religion, by boundaries. He was just completely humanitarian person. But he was also very successful within business. He has turned around, and I haven't put a picture in here, but I was proud to say that in the last month, they had, for 3 months, the best of sort of like the foundational 40 years of Peterborough, and he was actually in that particular delivery at the local museum. So I was really proud to take him there when he said his own name there. So my mother, exactly the same, and my father clearly tells me, do not work with people who haven't lost money. Because what happens is the resonance changes when you haven't had it. When you have it, you taste it, and you think, oh, this is easy. And when you lose your money, you come back and think, oh, hang on a second. I really like that. I've got to do that again. So then your resonance, when you've got it the second time around, is very different. It's not so aggressive. Does that make sense? So today, here's where your pen, papers, recordings, pens, pads, whatever your iPads you want to go in. I'm going to share with you on a humble note my 7 steps that I have actually utilized time and time again and I still use today. 7 steps of how I've created business strategy. So I'm going to give you all the what we need to cover now. So I'll go into much more detail. Step 1 is very simply to start it. Who here has thought of an idea, popped it onto their mood board, and left it there? Anybody? Please, don't be shy. Put your hand up. Do you see what I'm trying to say? The first biggest momentum push you'll get is to actually start it. Do not fear failure. Set your goals. Make them very clear, and I'll go through the details. I'll give you some subheadings of this as well. Discipline yourself. Trust me, I'm a disciplined man. I run 11 companies and 3 philanthropic organizations. Do you think I need time? Do you think I need time scheduling? Time management? Yes, I do. And that comes from discipline. Understanding where I'm supposed to stand. These are key pillar stones of success. You'll never find a random person who just decides, oh, I'll start a business, and he makes $1 million and he can't do it again. But he will never be able to repeat it unless he disciplines himself to take action. Again, him or her. I say he as man. Does that make sense? Mastermind. Now, what does mastermind mean to somebody here? Anybody know what masterminding means?
I think somebody master his behavior, thoughts, or actions.
Okay, so what was that again? Master people's behaviors, thoughts, and actions, yes? Okay, that's a very, very cool part of it. Masterminding, when I go into it much more detail, is actually about having people around you who inspire you, who push you, who care for you to actually make sure that you actually do achieve your dreams. Does that make sense? For me, it was my parents, and I was lucky. I didn't realize this until post, when I started working with so many people. I thought, amazing. I didn't realize it was such a lonely journey because it wasn't for me. Masterminding is when you sit at tables and you thrash out challenges, what we call mood boarding and information of that sort of nature. Have the right team around you. Select individuals who inspire you. Select individuals who support you. Select individuals who stretch you. This is key. Find a mentor. My mentors were my parents. What is the difference between, now you two can't cheat by sharing, right? Because I shared this with you already. What's the difference between a coach, a consultant, and a mentor? Anybody want to give it a go? Put your hand up. Who knows what a coach is? Please. There we are, the young lady at the back. Wow, thank you. So, can I repeat that? An expert, a coach is an expert in a particular field, yes? And a mentor doesn't have to be? Is that what you said? Got it. And yourself?
A mentor is one who cares for you, who has a self-vested interest in you. He may not be an expert like you, but he has a vested interest in you to go on.
Okay, so we've got another person who is somebody who's an invested interest. Can I share what do you think a consultant is then, please, just to clarify? Please, again, please share your name, because it's much better if we get names. Hashish.
A consultant is whether he has done it or not, but he'll advise you and charge for it.
I like that. Touche. Okay, so live a sensible answer. A consultant. Rob.
Consultant. Anyone who just knows anything more than you do on the subject.
Who can consult on it, right? So now what about a mentor? Come on, Ashish.
Who has walked the path where you are walking.
That's key.
difference between a mentor and a coach.
Did you hear that? Has walked the path that you're trying to walk. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So now I'm going to give you my take on it. None of them are wrong. A coach actually does not require any industry knowledge. That's a myth, isn't it? It's just been broken. A coach doesn't have to have any industry knowledge at all. What they must be is a skilled person who can take you to be the best you can possibly be. What we call a performance enhancer. Does that make sense? Does that change that something at the back there? So if I was a coach and I am a mindset coach and I can bring you to accelerative logic, I could help you, even though I'm not super fit, I could help you run a marathon. Because I could get you over your own limitations and your own ability to think that you cannot. Does that make sense? That's what a coach does. A consultant is somebody who's actually educated, as Rob was saying, and as Ashish was saying as well, is educated in your arena, in your specific arena, and has what we call step-by-step strategies. Has to be educated in that particular field. Does that make sense? So you'd call a consultant and say, Mr. Consultant, can you please get me funding? Can you teach me how to trade online? Yeah? So they have a skill set that you need to employ. That's a consultant. And what is a mentor? A mentor is somebody who doesn't have to have any skill in communication. It could be a grumpy old fart standing over there saying, do it that way. All right? Bye. But what they're going to do is save you thousands of pounds. And what they're going to do is they're going to take you from A to B quicker than anybody else can do because they've run the path already. Does that clarify that a little bit in your mind? Massive differences between coach, mentor. So when I'm saying get a mentor is a person who's going to engage you. May not be the best communicator, but in some cases you can get the same people in one. But a mentor will turn around and tell you when to get your consultant in. A mentor will tell you when to go and get a coach to keep you active. Does that make sense? Because they've already been there. Is that helpful? Thank you. Share your learnings. Why would we share our learnings? Sorry? Always good to give back, absolutely. Gratification, always good to give back. There's a deeper anchored learning in there as well, though. The learning is that if I do not understand something, how can I share it with you? And then when I share it with you, in theory, what I've done is I've just practiced it. It's the best way to learn. It's actually the only way to learn. Because I can put the information in my head. I want everybody in this room to go and share this with someone. Just one thing. That proves to your own head that you actually understood what was going on today. Does that make sense? And then finally, reward yourself. Why would you reward yourself? Life would get damn boring, wouldn't it, otherwise? I want to buy a Ferrari, so I'm going to go and buy a Ferrari. But actually, if I set myself a target, structured reward, actually turn around and say, do you know what? I'm going to allocate 5% of my gain, financial gain, and that means I've got to have X amount. I'm going to spend £20,000 on an interior design. So what do I need to turn over? Okay, so now I have a strategy, don't I? I structure my own reward, and I say to them, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'll have this much money in the pot, and I'll allocate 5% and go and buy my £20,000 car. That's a structure. It's much better. That saved my wealth, because that came from my background of 7 generations, and they said, son, don't just go and buy something. Buy it off the back of an earning. Hit a target, and then reward yourself. Does that make sense? I want to buy a new car. Do something to, in theory, in your mind, deserve that reward. Does that help? These are great strategies. When you actually physically apply them to your world, you'll think, oh my God, these are deeper than what he's just saying, because I'm giving you stuff from 7 generations, not just myself. So, step 1. What does, in theory, start it today mean? Clarify your vision. First steps. So anybody's got a, can anybody sort of like give me an example of trying to start a business? Who was starting the business again? Who wanted to start a business? And who's brave enough to put themselves forward and say, let's try and make this work? Anybody? Young lady over here. Can I please have your name? Laura. Laura. So please, Laura, what is your vision?
I like to make a production company.
A production company for?
Film.
Film. Okay, so a film production company. There's a gentleman called, right out there. Do you know Rob? Okay, one of the organizers. He's actually going now he's going back to Vietnam. He is from that background. So how cool is that? You've got somebody sitting here right now. Clarify your vision. Tell yourself exactly. When somebody asks me, what exactly are you trying to achieve? I'll be really specific. So specify your vision. So I am going to, or I want to, open a production company. I know for some people it may seem really simple, but it's actually really simple, but it's the most effective way to take action. A production company in this space of, be very specific. Yeah? And say, what is in the space? So a production company could be so random and so open, and you'll be competing with everybody if you don't know what you're trying to produce. But if you turn and say something like this, Laura, I'm actually looking to be a production company for all educators off stage. Does that narrow it down a little bit? Helps you clarify it, doesn't it? So now you know exactly who you're trying to target. And if somebody asks you, they'll remember, oh, Laura wanted to start a production company who wants to assist speakers off stage. Does that make sense? Now we're getting much more clarity. It starts automatically. You want to get clarity in something, because it starts becoming magnetic. You start attracting yourself and engaging yourself to your own mission. Up until then, you don't get it. Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, I'm really excited, but sometimes you don't know what you're excited about. Nice little giggle. Identify the opportunity clearly, which is what I was just speaking about. Yeah? So get very, very focused on it. Plan your actions. That means put it into order. And I'll talk to this in a timely environment. Yeah? So we're going to go through this. So plan your actions. Look at what you need to do before you turn around and go to market. So don't go prematurely to market, and don't sit there thinking about it in analysis, paralysis by analysis. Don't get yourself stuck into that little space as well. Have a bit of vigor and courage to take steps. We've all heard that, haven't we? Fail to plan, plan to fail. By the way, if anybody wants copies of this, just tell me. I'll give you every single slide. Yeah, absolutely, every single slide. No problem at all. What we'll do is at the end, give me your details or speak to Deepak, and I'll send it to him, and you can all have a copy. Or you can come to me directly, and I'll sort that out. I'll sort that at the end. There you are. Okay? There you are. By the way, Rob, you've got a person over here, Laura, who wants a bit of a hand in production company. Okay? So, step 2, set your goals. Most people think when you set goals, it's just as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to do this by this time, and that's it. Okay? So now who's heard of the acronym S.M.A.R.T? Yeah? Who's used it? Can I have a show of hands so I can get it? Now, who's heard of smarter? Yeah? Just the 2 elements on the end. That's what changed it for me, because I got smart, and I thought it didn't engage me quite enough. So we're going to go through the SMART. So don't worry, all the people who don't know about it. Is it okay if I cover that for the people who do know? Can I go through it again? You don't mind, do you? You're not going to be switched off, or don't throw any tomatoes at me. Not today. So smarter is a particular process which helps you set goals, but it really refines your mindset. It actually gets you focused. Does that make sense? So I think it'll be really valuable. I'll just spend some more time on that as well. Okay? So what is the SMART process? Here we go. Goal setting. Be specific. We'll go through this detail again. Be measurable. Be attainable. And there's loads of different variants of this. You know, attainable can be changed to loads of different words. Be relevant. Be relevant. Please be relevant to what you're trying to achieve. And be time-bound. Always set yourself a time task. This last bit has what's actually turned my money around. Because I've turned around and put timelines, and I've set it out. It's like having, has anybody studied psychology in the sense of timeline therapy? Okay, well, I'll just share with you very quickly. It's like a therapy where you can actually visualize your timeline of what you're going to do in the future. So you can literally go forward and you drop down, by this date, I'll have achieved this. By this date, I'll have achieved this. By this date, I'll have achieved this. And then just get slightly surprised when it starts actually happening. Because it's your unconscious brain actually knows that you've set it, a task. Timeline therapy. If you want to ever go through, I'm studied and master practitioner in it as well, so I can help you with that. Now, how do you specify something? So this is the SMART element, yeah? So what will I accomplish? Get detailed. Write it down and say, I will have a company and I will set it up to be a niched production company. We're using Laura's, everybody please apply your own, yeah? Is this helpful? Okay, thank you. Why are you even getting involved in it? Excuse the typo. What is the purpose? What is the reason why you want to do this? Do you see how this will add so much more volition into your movements? Get some focus going, get the actual feeling into them, saying, I want to do this because. Now, some people want to do things which are non-governmental, they're NGO based, they're basically doing for charity. So in those contexts, they're not doing it for money, are they? They have to do it for some bigger order. So we're asking people to ask yourself, what exactly are you doing it for? Because that's as simple as that. It could be for, I'm doing this so I can settle myself in finances. It could be that I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for my next generation. It could be I'm doing it for my parents. Does that make sense? Just be very specific with yourself on that. Who else needs to be involved? People who think they're going to do the whole business on their own will get the business started. Momentum will dry up. Why? Because there is nobody else to bounce off. We are social animals. We have spent 9 months in the womb connected to a person, our mother. We are in that engagement. We're not like tadpoles who never see their parents. We are very social animals. The proof of the fact is Facebook. Why is it such a big success? It's because we need society, and society needs us. So who else do you need to get involved in? Look for the skill sets. Is anybody aware of disc profiling? Yeah? Got a few people? Or disc profiling, I can go through that in detail with you if you want to catch me, because I know I'm on a time schedule here. Disc profiling, just to be very quick, if you want to take a quick understanding, I haven't put it in here. D-I-S-C. The D is dominant. This is the character psychometric of an individual. A person who's a dominant character makes a very good managing director. Yeah? Makes a very good big vision, big picture seer. But ask them to do any detail, they're not interested. If you say to them, okay, when do I need to do this by? I don't know. I just see myself on that island. How do I get there? We'll get there. Trust me. You get a lot of those sort of individuals in the Ds. They're drivers. They inspire people to move forward. That's a dominant, a D. Now that's an extroverted individual. Then we have an I, the influencer, the person who is much more social adept, connected, the networkers, the people who make great salespeople. Yeah? So this is just another kind of a psychometric understanding of people's learning patterns, or should I say, getting people into flow, being the best that they can be. It's not about you become this one box. Trust me, we're all of them. But this is just basically learning our learning habits. Then we have, an S, which is a stability person, or otherwise known as sensitive, sensory. A person who makes great HR, resolution, problematic solving, creates solutions to keep people connected, much more softer spoken, much more into the detail. I know, there's a little bit of a joke around the eyes, actually, going back a second with the eye. The eye, basically, if you show them a shiny torch over here, they're over here. Hey, that looks great. And if you show them another shiny torch over there, they'll go, hey, that looks better. So their ideas change every 5 seconds. If you want a mood board, a creator, you're going to be pulling, a person who's an eye. They'll say loads and loads of information. By the way, none of these are ostracizing individuals. These are actually just saying, what do I like doing best? Because I'm only ever going to bring the best of myself when I'm in flow. If I am not in flow, if I don't see how I enjoy my life or what's my best passion, then you're just doing a day. Wake up in the morning, do your job, go home in the evening. I live every single day, trust me. I have a very close friend of mine who says a very simple acronym, and he was the world's largest standing war volunteer in mid-Africa. So basically every morning he woke up and he could have been shot every second of every single day. He managed 9 years, and he came back to England as well. He wrote a book, and his sayings, his name is Ed Walker, and he wrote, "A man is not living unless he is loving." He's a client of mine, we sat down and spoke about this, and I expanded on it. I said, do you feel, Ed, that that's completed? And he said, no, but I just can't complete it. And I said, well, why don't we try it now? So we sat together, and it became, a man is not living unless he is loving. But a man has to ask, now, how do I love? A man is not loving unless he is giving. So then the final question comes, well, how do I give? You can never give unless you forgive. Let go of outcomes. Become a person who just wants to do good. And all of a sudden, everybody starts connecting with you. You get magnetic. People like your personality. You get involved in these sort of environments. Does that make sense? Anyway, that was just a diversification. And the final is C. And I think I've got a larger number of C's here, which are compliance individuals, calculus people. The people who, my friends at the back there, require. The people who are the people who are standing there trading. They're much more into detail. Give them a job, and they'll give you a systemized approach. The great consultants of this world, they really get it. They get the detail down. Does that make sense? They're not. Don't ask them to run a business. Not interested. I can see you want to have a party, but do you realize that you're going to start at this time? Do you realize you've got to have 11 people there? You've got to realize you've got break-even point over here, and do you realize that you've got to have all the step-by-step details? That's what you call a compliance. Has that been helpful with DISC? So we are all one of them naturally. That makes us spark, makes us come alive, and there's no wrong or right way of doing anything. So don't ostracize yourself. It's just whichever works for you. Be more of that. Got it? Hopefully that's helpful. So who do you need to be involved with? And a little trick of that conversation is very simply, if I am a D, then logically every company requires an I, an S, and a C. Yeah? So I learned that when I was 21 years old. That's when I got my kick. When I realized it doesn't have to be me doing everything. Because I thought I was a failure originally if I didn't do everything, from the bookkeeping through to the sales, through to the ordering, the organizing. And that's very regular when you're a person who's in business. When you start realizing that all you need to do is attract the right people to assist you, to help you, get an accountant to do the accounting. Obviously, all these have an expense against them, but we can talk about those as just simple break-even scenarios. Okay? So who do I need to be involved to start writing down? So actually, I think I need a person who's going to sell my business for me. I think I need a person who's going to ground the business and look at the figures. ETC. So which requirements exactly, we've just covered that. So what exactly do I need to get done? So which are the actual measurements that I need to look at? Make sure it's measurable, the second M from S.M.A.R.T. A concrete criteria. What does that mean? Anybody? I haven't made you go to sleep, have I? I'm hoping you're getting a lot of value from it, maybe, then. Concrete criteria is basically, this is exactly what I need to do. If a part of it is networking, like tonight, or seeking more advice, be concrete about it and say it's measurable. I need to go to a network environment and I need to do 5 or 4 in this month, 1 a week, and I should have these set criteria outcomes. I need to have identified myself a mentor. I need to have identified somebody who does finances for me. I need to find somebody who possibly can connect with me, who can go and sell for me, etc., etc., etc. Does that make sense? Have predestined outcomes for where you want to be. So be concrete on your criteria. Measure the progress itself. So create your own measurements and say, when I have achieved step 1, which would be to identify the right people, or step 1 could be actually getting the first section, the S, getting specific. That's now a measurable criteria. It's why I'm giving you SMART. This is your criteria of getting yourself moved forward, so you know where you are. Okay? Tangible units and tasks. Because most of us put ourselves in a position where we turn around and we decide, yeah, I'll do that, and by the end of this month I'll have turned over this much money. But how are you actually going to do it if you're not tangibly setting yourself little tasks and goals? Little triggers, we call them, yes? So am I going to, when I have 3 paying clients at £97, I now have achieved my first task. That's now your own set module. Does that make sense? Is that easy to understand? Just simple. So you check your own. So if you're in a web environment, you want to say, so I want 3 web projects. Then I'll know that's tangible. So I know I'm going on my way. Every single month I need to repeat that. Yeah? Attainable. Now here's where we start taking what we call a reality check. Because we don't want to be sitting in the dreamers, do we? Yeah? We want to be in a position where we actually take advantage of our time and our mission. So is it financially within your capacity? Do you have the funding in place? And the answer is, if not, then what do I do to get that funding? Yeah, but be realistic with yourself. Don't say, I need £1 million, yeah, it'll fine, it'll come. I've heard that so many times. Yeah, don't worry, it'll come. It probably does come, but it'll be a darn sight nicer for you to know exactly where it's going to come from, right? Look for the skills that you're missing. And there's a particular, if it helps anybody, gents, is it okay if I give everybody a link if it helps them? Another time, it's not one of my own links, but I'll share your link. If you want to do the disc profiling, because that always start with yourself. Yeah? Be the change you want to be, and we all understand that. So start with yourself and start looking at your own caveats and your own distinctions of what you enjoy doing yourself. And don't push yourself to try and be something that you don't want to be. Yeah? So I'll send, if everybody's okay, we'll make a note of that. There's 2 things. One is obviously I'll give you a link to a disc profile. I'll send that to you guys by email. So you can physically go on there and do your own tests. It's free because it usually costs, but through Tony Robbins' organization, I've got a link, and you can actually do that for nothing. So you'll know your own character. That is, literally, I'm telling you, it's just the same as having somebody on a tweet on your shoulder and saying, has somebody been watching me? Is that accurate? You think, I can't believe how accurate this can be. So identify yourself and then identify the other 3 elements that you require within your skill base so you can bring the right people and right team forward. Realistic goals that can be achieved, and obviously that's being realistic and saying, I'm going to sell 100 people in this first week. Maybe you are, but be realistic. Look for references and say, you know, if it'll be yourself and say, I'm going to start this, it'll be really realistic to try and say, well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have the business set by the end of November. So by the end of, April. So I'm going to put myself into a position and say, this is actually going to be actioned. I'm going to have my logo done, I'm going to have my positioning done, and I'm going to look for a very specific first client. That'll be a very good, attainable position. Does that make sense? Relevance. Now, this is quite illogical, but this is put in context. Something that matters to you. Otherwise, it's just another thing. If it's something that doesn't matter to you, if you're just thinking, well, how can I make money? And you just pick anything that comes off the shelf, after a period of time, you're going to get bored of it. So it'd be nice to just keep your momentum going. Does that make sense? Is that kind of logical? Has anybody been in a position where they started something and then just got completely bored of it and packed it up? Be honest, please. People don't try things? I've got like 3 or 4 people saying, yes, I did. You've tried something, I'm sure. Everyone's tried something. We've all tried. I've put my hand up. I've tried things that I got completely bored with. It didn't work for me. I was like, Jenna, that is so sad. I don't want to do this anymore. So I just decided I don't want to do it anymore. So literally, I decided that my time was not well spent, so I cancelled it out. And I realized that I should spend my time over here. But actually, I did something very clever. I went and sold what I didn't enjoy to somebody else who did. Okay? So in specific, it was a situation where we started a cleaning company. It was just the most not interesting industry, but because it was booming at the time, we did it. But then I found somebody who was one of the guys who really got interested by it. And I sold it to him, and it was really helpful. Does that make sense? So I moved on. Be honest with yourself as well, and don't take a rain check at any moment, but just be relevant to yourself and say, do you know what? I don't think this is going to work. Not the way I want it to work. Maybe I started it thinking it was going to be this, but don't sit there pushing yourself into a place where you are forcing yourself to continue. Yeah, it doesn't work. You know, there's so many stops there. Make sure it's worthwhile and you're connected to it. Yeah, time structured, which means place tasks in order of action. Don't just say, oh, I've got to do all of these things and take them randomly. And I'm sure everybody in this room is very high calculus, so I can see you put yourself in order. Yeah, so take it in order and make sure you actually take advantage of that order. Time specific, which is clearly step 2. That all was all step 1. Deadline is specific. I'm going to be on the 31st or the 30th of April, I will have all this done. Does that make sense? If you don't set those sort of targets, you just won't do it. It'll be like, yeah, I'm okay, I'll get there. Accountability. What does that mean? Accountability doesn't mean an accountant. I've had that. Well, accountability means I need a good accountant. Yes, it could be. But actually, accountability means who's actually going to check that you've done these things? So find somebody who holds you accountable. And that could be from a good mastermind. Because if a good mastermind is organized, you're going to share with people and say, I'm going to get this, this, and this done. And then they'll check whether you've done it. Okay? So that's accountability. But if you don't get accountability, you'll do it 1 month and you won't do it next month, and you'll do it some months and you'll not do it next month. If you want true growth, make sure you've got some accountability in place. It's the secret to success. Achievable, meaning don't make it too long-winded that you can't even achieve it, because that means you'll get deterred before you even get there. Okay? Long-term and short-term deadlines. So what does that mean? Meta, macro, and micro. What do I need to achieve? I need to achieve a going concern business that does X million. So what do I need to do before that? So make it more short-term. I need to ensure that I've got a structure around me, I've got a person who's going to help me, or I've got to complete somebody's business that I'm modeling, or I'm buying somebody's business that's running. Does that make sense? So there's my term. Now, on a macro level, what am I actually doing? How many clients am I going to bring in the door? Just fine starting the business and then saying, well, I've opened the shop, how come customers aren't coming in? So what am I actually doing to attract my client base? Helpful a little bit? Don't fall asleep on me. Create a sense of urgency. That means basically the sense of urgency comes from you needing to do it. So there's an old saying, there's a toward and away from theory. A toward is something that inspires you to go towards something. So you need to be inspired and say, this is how I want to be seen in the world. I want to do this for my family. I want to do this for X. Does that make sense? That's a toward energy. And away from energy is kind of like putting your hand into fire. Within a second, you'll take it out, but then it stops. So this is kind of like a turbocharge, an away from energy. Use those away from energies. Like, I've had enough. I don't want to be broke anymore. And that could be a great away from energy. So you pull yourself out of that, push yourself forward, but always find your toward energy. Yeah? So that's what you call short-term and long-term urgency. So now what is the ER? The first point is clear there. It's evaluate. Now what does evaluate mean? Anybody, please be courageous.
Check where you are.
A check, yeah? Am I still on target? Have I checked? I said to myself I'm going to have 10 clients, am I there? Does that make sense? Be in that space. But to evaluate also, the big caveat is how does one evaluate? How can, yeah, please. To be with a mentor, yes. But how does one evaluate even after that? You have to be present. The biggest thing that changed for me at the age of 20 was when I was 19 years old, I started changing, was being present. Actually realizing what I'm actually doing. I can't emphasize that enough. Don't drift, don't coast. Do something. So actually be present in your now and realize what actually happens. So you can't actually evaluate unless you're really present and being realistic with yourself. Does that make sense? Is it helpful? You'll understand that presence is probably the biggest thing you're going to take away from here. There's everything else you can learn. But to be present is an activity, it's a process that you have to go through. You're going to meditate, get yourself in the space and say, am I actually really being honest with myself? Is this really working? Yeah? If not, what do I need to do to change? That's evaluation. You can't evaluate unless you're present. Because the evaluation just gives you a tick list. Have I done this? Have I done this? Have I done this? And there could be yeses all the way through. And we've all done it, myself included. But when I became present was when I catapulted my businesses. You know, I was 18, 19 years old. I was doing £800,000 of turnover within a retail organization. And I could say very comfortably I was successful. 18 years old, having £800,000, having whatever you wanted whenever you wanted it. You know, trust me, I was bored of spending money. Yeah? From a personal level. But I couldn't evaluate anything until I actually became truly present in what I was actually trying to achieve. So that's where the mission, the purpose came in. And then I realized, actually, do you know what? Why am I being an idiot? I'm £800,000, and that's absolutely fine. But there's people out there who are turning over more, and there must be a reason why they're doing it. So then I started looking at myself and said, why would I even want to do this? And that was inspired by my father. He said to me, you're great, that's good, so go and smash $1 million now. And I'm going, I don't want to. I don't want to. I've got the money I want to do. I've always been an investor. I've gone straight into property. I've bought properties and stored my money. Does that make sense? I don't want to grow any bigger. But why did I push through? Because I was challenged. Get people to challenge you and say, are you sure you're present? Are you sure this is the right way? Are you doing it the right way? I can tell you what, this is how I would do it, but only listen to people who've done it before. As I said, you get away with the pub talk. Yeah? And reward yourself. That's what the R is, the ER. Okay? So anybody else who didn't understand SMART, this is the ER part of SMART. So SMART goals are in this context. So you reward yourself, but do make it tangible. Don't just turn around and reward yourself whenever you want. Set yourself targets, hit those targets, and make it tangible financially that you can actually pay yourself this reward. Does that make sense? Sorry, I'm in your way. You'll get a copy of this, but please take the notes you want right now as well, yeah? And obviously, when you reward yourself, guess what? You get happy. When you get happy, you start liking what you're doing because it's fulfilling what you want to do, yeah? They're smarter. Step 3 is to be disciplined. Now, what would discipline mean? Who here can honestly say they're absolutely disciplined? Good, I believe you. Because remember I said to you before, a person who believes whatever they believe is true. Yeah? So as a man who's disciplined, your day would be scheduled. You do the same things, and by looking at you, I can clearly see that you're a fit person, and you look very disciplined. Oddly, I look as I'm undisciplined, but actually I'm very disciplined. I'll give you some interest, some background. When I was 18 to 19, 20 years old, I used to be a weight trainer. So what I did is I pushed myself to being a very heavyweight weight trainer. So when I said to you I was on or off, I was on. I wanted to be a weight trainer. And that probably had something to do with the fact that I wanted to get married, right? But whatever it was, I ended up being a weight trainer. So I ended up being nearly 55 inches in my chest. So I was very, very big. So there's a discipline. So I have a very strong disciplined character. I don't do it right now because it doesn't mean anything to me right now. Does that make sense? And it was okay whilst it did it, but I've what we call mapped those knowledge and those structures and attitudes to other things that I want to do, and I can show you how to do that as well. Create a routine, and I can see anybody who is super disciplined would have a routine. So you wake up in the morning at set time, and you do things at certain times. And in theory, I'm going to use a word which tends to be a bit wobbly. You know, a lot of people don't get it, but it's actually create a ritual. A ritual is just a set process routine that gets you the same outcome. Does that make sense? So you ritualistically follow your routine. And if it means that you set an hour away or 45 minutes or 15 minutes worth of meditation time, then you do that realistically. Yeah? Whatever the routine, stick to a routine that works for your outcome and must work with your internal knowledge. Yeah? Commit to it. Because the routine's great on a piece of paper, right? And yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. My father taught me from a very young age, he said, son, do it today. If it needs to be done, get it done. There's an old saying, do today's work today. Don't leave it till tomorrow, because you're not in the space, you're not in the right space to get that done. So that comes from discipline, kicking yourself to get things done. And once again, the magical presence of evaluation. Evaluate, does this routine work for me? Don't just be numb and routinely do the same thing again and again and again and again. Does that make sense? So I want you to absorb a lot of this information. I appreciate there's a fair flow, and I'm a different kind of a speaker, I'd get more interactive, but I'm going to open the floor for questions, so please start writing your questions down later. Mastermind, here's where I'm going to give you far more understanding of what a mastermind is. Create a peer group. This is magical. This propelled my business from $1 million to multi-million. Does that make sense? Mastermind. Get people out there who you want to model. Go and hang out with them. Go and learn things, because you become the people around you, right? Yeah? Create a peer group, and a peer group is somebody who's above you, right? So create the peer group that stretches you. There's no life in being monotonously doing the same thing. Get somebody who stretches you. If one thing over here, if you disagree with something that I'm talking to you, that's brilliant, because guess why? That's going to stretch you. That's the thing that's going to really stretch you. And if it's something that you don't already believe, that's something that you think, oh, I want to push myself out of this one. So you want people to hold you accountable and push you just that little bit further, whereas life just gets boring. Like-minded individuals, that means people who want to achieve. So you have like the Knights of the Round Table. They all had one momentum, one mission purpose, to the embetterment. Does that make sense? So in your case, go and hang out in these environments where people actually want to create business together. Be in the space where they want to be there. Get involved in masterminds where all of them are startups and they're really doing something. And a few established businesses as well. Because you want peers in there, don't you? So you want a community. Meet regularly. The regularly bit is very important because meeting randomly, again, there's no discipline, no routine, no stretch for you, right? Make it regular. So if you're going to attend this event, attend it every single month, routinely. Don't just say, oh, I'm free this month, I'll do it. Put it into your agenda, put it into your diary, and work around that diary. Does that make sense? Say, I'm going to be here at this time. Accountability buddies, I call them. Basically, people who are going to check in on you. Did you do that? How did that go? You know, you said you were going to write an article. Did you write the article? How did it go? How did you feel? Get somebody just to check on you. Does that make sense? Get somebody peer in the group that you connect with. Create that mastermind. Has anybody read, because obviously you haven't heard of masterminds, I would suggest everybody read a book called Think, Grow, Rich. Has anybody heard of that? Yeah? Has anybody read it? So if you had, you would know what mastermind is, because in chapter 9, I think it is, it covers masterminds. Okay? But Think, Grow, Rich was written by a gentleman called Dr. Napoleon Hill. Yeah? And what he did, basically, he was funded by Dale Carnegie, the Carnegie Trust in America, and he funded him to say, what makes people successful? What actually makes people successful? And this is an era when the industrialization was just starting, so there was big, big gaps between the people. So he turned around and interviewed 500 entrepreneurs and individuals, and there you are, hold it up, please. And your name, please. You're really, Nick. That's the book, okay? He basically went through every single aspect, but he was also a psychologist from birth. He was a doctorate in that logic, so it wasn't just somebody just randomly said, oh, what made you successful? He was thinking about the process. Okay? So if you can ever get into that book, do it, because that covers Mastermind, but I'm going to go deeper in my way. That was the book that inspired me to Mastermind, and that's where I look for my Mastermind. If anybody hasn't got it, Google my name, go online, and you put your details in there, you get a free PDF copy of it as well. So you can, everyone can have it free. Accountability buddy, and again, our magical evaluate. But you cannot evaluate unless you're present. Mentoring. Identify a mentor in your field. That doesn't necessarily mean somebody who's specifically a person who's done your work, even though, you know, if Rob can share with you, he's very particular in that line, yeah? But it means somebody who's in your field, who's built businesses, who's gone the way you want to be going. Clear expectations with that mentor in advance. Okay? Because mentors are not necessarily, myself aside, because I understand that sort of stuff, mentors are not usually people who are structured enough to share whether you've got the knowledge or not. They're just going to say, ask me and I'll tell you, kind of thing, yeah? So make sure you've got it clear in front of them. When you engage a mentor, do you know, I want to model you. I need to see what makes you successful, or I'm looking specifically for you to tell me how to get my business growing. Yes, please. Do you think it's good to have more than one mentor? What a great answer, great question. Yeah? Now, the answer is yes. Absolutely. Because a mentor is going to give you their view on how they did something. That doesn't mean it's the only way. And you should have a mentor in specific fields. Nick, did you want to say something? All right. So always get them, model them, others, read books in that arena. And I'm sure you're all readers anyway, so you get all that stuff. Please. Your name, please.
Where do you find a mentor in the field?
That's wonderful. Well, first things first. Remember I said to you in your field is somebody who started a business. Okay? So do you know anybody who's in business who wants to actually even try to help people? Because mentors aren't going to go out the way. Sorry, you were saying? You. All right, me. I wasn't meaning that, but yes, me. But all you've got to do is look in your circle and say, who are you connected with? Because I'm telling you now, the universe provides. If you're very specific about what you're trying to look for, I'm looking for a mentor to stretch me, to take me, you know, the next level is stretch yourself. Stretching is somebody who takes you away from your comfort zone. And not necessarily just for the sake of it, but gets you to do things you don't want to do so that you have experience of it. So you know why you're doing it as well, yeah? But a mentor in specific, just to clarify, would be anybody who's probably further down the line than you. Yeah? And what do you want to do?
Well, I'm just not
Do you see how I'm just a marketing manager?
It's quite easy to find marketing questions.
Really? Is it that easy to find a good one?
Yeah, questions.
I know loads of books, but that doesn't mean all of them are great. Yeah? So you're a marketing manager. Be proud of it. So what do you want to achieve in your life? Sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but that's fun, right? We're all here to gain out, to progress ourselves, right? So what do you want to do?
So I'm looking to grow a team, and I'm just about to start working with a startup where I'll be heading up, starting the marketing function in a new startup.
In a new startup. See? So you're making change, right? So now what you need is somebody to keep you on your toes, to ensure that you can model and push yourself to the best you can be. Otherwise you'll get stagnant. Or when people go into new environments, they tend to take their skill base and their previous experience, but then they run out of experience, don't they? So when you're there, now, okay, so what do I do now? So I've done all the things that I knew, and it's worked. Now what do I do? So you need to constantly grow. You need somebody to stretch you all the time, okay? So meet regularly with this person, whoever this person is. Ask good questions because you get good answers. Evaluate yourself and see whether I'm actually doing what they're asking me to do as well. Because I've got 300 mentees that I work with, okay? And all of them are structured at different levels because some people just want to be a part of the mastermind. But what I'm trying to get through is the ask good questions bit is key. Because you can be sitting in front of a mentor and you haven't asked any questions and you've just missed an opportunity of your life. Does that make sense? So have good questions arranged in advance. So if you want to do something with yourself in marketing, have those questions in advance and go and ask them. Say, do you think it's a good idea to go into marketing? Okay, then they'll ask you a simple question. What experience have you got in running a business? And if the answer is none, but I really am enthusiastic for having my own organization, my own company for marketing, then my first question to yourself is, okay, let's look at your project. Let's look at how you're going to make it viable. What are you actually going to sell? What are you not going to sell? And then how are you going to sell? How are you going to bring people into your client base? Yeah? So these are the kind of things you want to be encouraging with. People who stretch you outside your comfort zone, things you haven't thought about. Is this helpful, guys? Thank you. Sharing your learning, step 6.
One quick question on mentoring.
Please.
Because how do you evaluate a fee at a mentor?
How do you evaluate the fee? Okay, that's an amazing question because most people say, well, how do you evaluate that? Because he's charging too much money or he's not charging enough. Does that make sense? The reality is very, very simple. If I was to go to a mentor, and I've got some mentors which, on a spiritual level, who I pay £30,000 a year to. Okay? So does that value me? Remember I said to you right at the start, Rob, what I believe is true. Does that make sense? If I believe it, I will commit to it and I'll get the value I need to get. So if it means how much do I need to, so if I said to you, I charge £12,000 for mentoring, okay? Or I charge £50,000 for mentoring. If that means, remember I said to you, if you go back to the previous mentoring, if I can, just give me a second. I said, clear expectations. Yeah, clear expectations. That is what tells you how much you should or shouldn't pay your mentor. If you clear your expectations and somebody says to you, I want £100,000 to do this, okay, so you need to think, okay, so ask the mentor, what will I achieve when I do this to have been able to pay you £100,000? So even if they want 100 grand, that's fine. If you're going to earn $1 million from it, trust me, I'd pay 100 grand. Is that true? Who wouldn't? Yeah? So if somebody says to you they're going to charge you £15,000 or £12,000, £1,000 a month to be involved in mentorship, then guess what? You're going to say, what?
Sorry, I don't mean to okay. Taking again, the majority
Yeah?
are startups.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Okay? So let's bring it back down to reality here, okay? It's all
Yeah.
well and fine to talk about 100,000, okay? But unless somebody's prepared to think on a
I was doing that for a stretch and mindset.
you know, otherwise it gets like, well,
So-
I've known friends,
Yeah.
good friends of mine, who had mentors at a variety,
Of costs, yes.
okay? The end result is the experience has been good and bad on both the cheap
On
and
both the sides, yeah.
expensive,
Yeah.
you know. So I'd say, how does one really set a guide value?
Got it. Now, what I was trying to say to yourself, if you take money out of the equation, if somebody stretches you and takes you there, then there's a value in that deal, right? That's what a mentor does. And this is what I'm trying to get to, that if you clear your expectations and say, if you're going to charge me £100 or £100,000, how will I regain that? Yeah? That is the question. Now, mentors will not begrudge you asking that question if they're in the space of properly helping people. If they're not in the space of helping people, they'll say, well, why do you want to know? Of course, that's what I charge. Do you want to get involved? Get her off. Not interested. Stefan.
By selecting the mentor, how do you measure it? Like in the first place, how do you...
Good question. First things first, can you even work with that person?
Yes.
Yeah. Then it's who that mentor is, then what, and how you're going to achieve it, and what timeline you're going to achieve it by. Okay? So how do you select the person? Well, you meet as many as you possibly can until you find the one that resonates with you and can give you clear, concise, educated, and experienced examples of what you're trying to achieve. You see, remember I said to you, whatever, if I turn around and said to you, you need to do these 10 steps, and you actually did those 10 steps, and you got the return on your investment, that's the right mentor. Do you get that? Now, that means, how do I now work that mentor out before I spend my money with the person? You have to do your diligence. You have to realize that if I connect with this person, if they're really stretching me, and actually do these things and become uncomfortable about doing them, knowing that they're going to be valuable in the long run, that person stretching me, I'm going to learn something. And the primary point, my father's taught me in many different ways, this is a generational information. It's about not what you're going to do, who you're going to do it with, and when you're going to do it. It's actually the very first bit, can I even work with this person? So I may come up here in flashing lights, but if you can't connect with me, and if I can't connect with you, I'm the wrong mentor for you. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question just a little bit, Stefan, or not?
It's tough to answer, but there's no real
There-
quantifiable criteria you can measure it.
There kind of is. I'll explain to yourself. When you get the feeling that you're with somebody, that this person, I really enjoy the company of this person and really stretching me, that's when you know unconsciously that that's the right person. Now you can look at their feedback and say, what have you done in your life? Have you taken a business from $1 million to multi-million or something? That's a gauge, yeah? So you always have to look at the tactile. Remember I said to you, tangible gauges. So you look at your tangible gauges. Has the person done this? If they haven't, then the answer is no. Don't grab somebody who says they're a mentor, hasn't done anything. Because there's loads of what we call, backdoor people who sit there speaking about the stuff, and they're really just making money out of speaking. Does that make sense? So go and have a look and see whether these people are actually doing the work. Go and speak to them and get the experience. Sorry.
So are mentors are actually their profession, that's what they pick, because when I always think about mentors, someone that obviously you've mentioned has actually lived that part, but it's not, they're still doing it.
They're doing. The key is that. Somebody who's physically still doing something. And you're
It's not their profession to mentor people, but you can approach them and say,
correct. Not necessarily. Now, for myself, most people say, well, hang on, you're a caveat there. Yes, I mentor, but I've made it my side business. Because I realize in my life, I've got to create change in somebody's world. Does that make sense?
the reason I ask is because it's not their profession, then what they, no one has actually approached them to mentor them, so
Yeah.
they're not thinking about, okay, well, to tell you about how I did, I'm going to have to do this or that.
Correct. So sometimes you get mentors who cost you nothing, who are just unconsciously mentor. There might be somebody who inspires you. Remember to find the peers. So I think the answer to the question is yes, of course, you'll find people who just don't even know they're mentoring you. Remember, it says point here, ask good questions. And if they're a person who doesn't even know they're mentoring you, then wow, get on with it. The missing element is that making sure that you're accountable. A person who's doing it professionally or doing it seriously will make sure that you're accountable to achieve certain things. Otherwise, there's no point. Get it? So does that help that question? And does that help yourself as well?
Yeah. I have a follow-on question.
Go for it. Are we okay for time, gents? 10 minutes, right? We've got 10 minutes.
Does a mentor have to believe in the mentee?
Yes. No chance.
So why should a mentor pay? Does the mentor
Have to believe in the mentee.
Sorry, my voice.
Don't worry. I know you've got a sore throat. You tell me.
Why should you pay your mentor in cash rather than giving him a share in your business?
Why would a mentor... Mentors do not have to be held over a barrel to be forced to invest with you. Does that make sense? Because when a mentor invests in you, then the line gets hazy. Am I now a partner in the business, or am I your mentor? Do you understand that? So then you need to have that discipline in your mind. Remember, discipline is very clear, and they get the clarity in place. So if a mentor wants to get involved, that's between you and the mentor. But a mentor should not be held accountable. That doesn't mean just because I won't invest in your company, they don't believe in what you're doing. Remember I said to you before? Be honest to yourself. Is this really interesting to me? Yeah? I may not want to build a chain of hairdressers. I'm not condoning that or condemning that. But I'm just saying to you, I might not want to do that. So I'm not going to get encouraged to be invested in your partner. Yeah? So look for people who believe in you as a person and have the ability to stretch you to make sure they can cut your time wasting, your 3 years of time. Yeah, I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm just going to cover this if I can. Yeah, Steph, please get hold of me afterwards. We'll go through this in detail. No problem at all. So evaluation is very key. So step 6, you must value your progress. So don't dismiss yourself. Oh, I haven't really done it. And acknowledge that you've achieved something. If you started something, acknowledge it. Be very fair with yourself. Don't batter yourself down. You know, start believing in the fact that you've done something. That's key. And then some of you might know somebody intimately who does that. Maybe even yourself. Identify your learnings. Always look to identify, what have I actually learned from today? So write notes down and clarify and say, yeah, I got that. This is what I got. Teach others and share the learnings. Why? Because we want to truly understand, we want to truly know, did you really understand what I said? Did you really understand it? And a person who can articulate it in their own way is somebody who's truly understood what's just been shared with them. Does that make sense? Value yourself. And you can see I put down self, big. You need to start valuing yourself and say that I can. That's not arrogance, that's belief. That's conviction in your journey. Yeah? So go for it in that context. And balance your achievements with gratification and charity. If you're not in realm where you say, well, actually, I'd rather have the £10 first, that's fine. But when you get your surplus, which you will inevitably get surplus, and it doesn't mean that you do money surplus. It means you physically go and pick up bricks for a local hostel. Does that make sense? Do something that gives you humbleness and grounding, because you'll start believing in yourself a lot more. And you think, I am doing something better for the world. Because if you don't have any money, President Lincoln clearly said, he goes, being poor, I cannot help the poor by being poor myself. Yeah? So I need to be something myself to have surplus to deliver. So many people I've said in many, many occasions, and I've asked the question, does anybody know in the charitable sector, who works in the charitable sector? Anybody here? Yeah, yourself. So just a question to yourself. What's your name, please? Sorry? Lee. Okay. Lee, just answer one question. Where do most of your funds come from? Do you think it comes from, you may not be privy to this information, but I'm going to share with you, does it come from the person who doesn't have money? Does it come from a person who's just throwing money away? Or does it come from people who are healed, have earned money, and have got the money to create change? If you're not into statistics, 84% of charitable trusts are run by people who have surplus money. And that means by the people who are the rich of this planet. Everyone says the rich are really bad people and this and the other. I don't think I'm a bad guy, and I'm clearly telling you, yes, I am rich. But I don't say it with arrogance. I say it with honesty because I believe I am. Does that make sense? Wealthy with my family, with everything around me. I don't need. So that means I am not needy, so I can actually help the needy now, can't I? Now, I know how much work we do in the charitable sector, and I'm going to tell you it's in 8 figures. That doesn't mean anything to anybody else, because I'm not going to share any more than that, because I'm a very private person when it comes to sharing work. But as Lee knows, the money for the charitable sectors actually comes from the rich. It doesn't come from anybody else. It comes from people who believe in creating change. The biggest giver on the planet is the richest person on the planet. But he didn't have to be.
It's also true, isn't it, that there are statistics showing that fortunately poorer people give more of their money than rich people.
Percentage-wise, absolutely, yes. But the purpose of the fact is one key question. Sorry, your name, sorry.
Gary.
Okay, Gary. That could ignite some kind of negativity in the context, right? Because poor people give a bigger section of their money. That doesn't mean they're bigger-hearted. I'll explain to yourself. If I had £2 coins in my hand, yeah, and they both came from different sources, how could you tell me which one's worth more? I can spend this pound given by a rich person, I can spend this pound given by a poor person, and I mean a very crude way of saying rich and poor. It's not the case, yeah? But I can buy the same thing with the same pound. So percentage-wise, I might give 10% of my £100, which is £10, but over here I might give you 10% of my £1,000,000, which makes £100,000. And that pound is worth the same. The change it's going to create is just bigger. Does that make sense?
Well, it also depends on how the wealth is generated.
Well, that comes into ethics. It's a complete debate. I'm fully with you there. Yeah, you know, you shouldn't be taking wealth from people, and you really tend to find that people who've earned it incorrectly don't necessarily aren't the first in the queue to be sharing it with other people. Yeah. So yes, I agree with you. Ethicalness is very, very important. But I'm short on time, so I'd love to carry this debate on, but I want to give you some questions. Evaluate. Evaluate when you're in the present. Reward yourself. I'm just going to skip through this very quickly because it's very logical. Enjoy the journey. When I went up Kilimanjaro, I didn't just have my eye on the summit. I physically was just told by the people saying, look, just poli, just put one step at a time. Don't concentrate on where you're going, just concentrate on one step in front of the other. So forget everything else, just keep taking one step. And when I was too fast, guess what happened? My then mentors came in front of me and just slowed me down. Because they knew I'd get tired. And that's where the foresight comes in, the trainers. Does that make sense? They'll sit there and they'll hold you accountable to your own process to make sure you don't burn out. So they just got in front of me, and guess what? In 5 days, we got to the top. And I wasn't even thinking about the top, I was just thinking about my next step. Poli, which means slowly, slowly. Okay? So enjoy the journey. When was the last time you stopped and said, you know what, I've done pretty well, and I'm really happy that I've got the people around me who I love? That could be an internal question. I can say, put your hand up, and hardly anyone put their hand up. Or everyone put their hand up and say, yes, I did. But truly, be present in the moment. Socialize with achievers. Select the people you want to hang out with and go and hang out with them. Yeah? Reflect progress regularly. That means looking back at what I'm achieving and how humbling it is, how focused it is. If I change just one person, has one person got any benefit from today? Any one person? Thank you. Thank you. If there's one person who's got a benefit from this, I've achieved what I aim to get here today. So I'm reflecting tonight. And I thank you for all, I'm really glad that I've more than one person. But I'm reflecting tonight, and I'm going to regularly look at myself and say, does that make sense to me? Did I really value that? Did I value that? Yes, I did. Okay? So take time out to recharge, and that's the key part where people think, how do you reward yourself? Yes, do take holidays. Yes, you do take away from your place. And that means truly switching off, though. Remember I said being present? That means not going on a holiday and spending all the time communicating with your business. Actually give yourself some time to just recharge. When I go on holiday, I'll set you one thing. I'm going to switch on or switch off. 100% one thing or nothing. So when I'm on holiday, I am on holiday. I break. People don't connect with me. In evenings, anybody knows me personally, at 6 o'clock in the evening, I am not open for communication. Why? Because it's my family time. So it's flick the switch, make it very clear. I don't attend lots of holidays because I don't need to, because I look into my family and I get a lot of rejoicement from there. Yeah? I love to see them progress. And that's what we get to. We have lots of conversations. So take time out, understand why and what makes you tick, and actually rejoice that, and actually turn around and take time to charge. Okay? Repeat at will. 7 steps review. Start it. Set smarter goals. Discipline yourself, really key. Mastermind with people who stretch you. Mentoring. Go and find somebody who's ahead of you in that game. Share your learnings regularly. Not with arrogance, with humility. Share and say, do you know, why don't you try it this way around? Be suggestive as opposed to do it that way. Reward yourself. Okay.
You have been listening to the 4-Hour Work Week podcast, brought to you by 4hourworkweek.co.uk for all your startup and lifestyle resources.